story in Paris. We shot in Paris for a month, which was amazing, except that it was supposed to be winter time. Fortunately, Paris doesn't usually have snow, right? It's supposed to be winter time, and I have to wear like boots and a long wool coat and all of these heavy clothes. And for the first time in many years, it was 100 plus degrees Fahrenheit in Paris in July, which is, I don't even know what, 40 plus in Celsius. It was so hot.
Welcome to Launch It, the Podcast Maestro, your gateway to becoming a thought leader in your field. Dive into the world of elite podcasting and master the art of influence and inspiration. And now, podcast personality, award-winning author and actress, Anne Scottlin.
Welcome back to Launch It, the Podcast Maestro. That's me. And I am here today to help share some great pointers with you. Fun stuff, mastering the art of storytelling in your podcast. So glad you are here. Please copy the link and share it with somebody you might also have fun joining us today. So if you're new to the show, this is where I help seasoned professionals in their field become thought leaders. And the reason we do that, the tool that we use to create that opportunity is the art of world-class podcasting. My Hollywood experience, my production knowledge, my on-camera training, my podcasting have made me a global influencer. So now you get the benefit of all my training and experience and my pitfalls, as in typos, as in no show is perfect, but it can still be world-class. So, but a lot of the things that I've learned along the way, the hard way, I can help you know what to do and what not to do. Thank goodness, right? So the big question is, so why be a thought leader? And I think it's because you create a platform, not only for yourself, as in it, you're sharing your knowledge. Sharing knowledge is so important to us as humans. You're able to create the transformation. You're able to make a societal contribution. So it is about you and your brand and your message, but it's also about making a difference in the world. And you know me as a social entrepreneur, that is one of the most important things to me. So in other words, I like to make the joke, it is all about you, and it's not all about you. You get to have your cake and eat it too, right? So let's just jump in. So the art of storytelling is something that is important in all aspects of life, but especially speaking and podcasting. So picture this. You're sitting in your seat, you have at the movie theater, you have a bucket of popcorn, the lights are dimming, and you see that iconic scrolling yellow text come up on the screen a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, you know. I mean, it's pretty simple, really. What is Star Wars about? It's a galactic struggle between good and evil and rebels and empires, right? But from such a simple premise, we really get an epic saga, and it's wowed many generations now. So why is that? What is that about Star Wars and other classic blockbusters that create such a cultural influence? Well, it isn't just about spectacle and action, although some people might watch it just for that. But for people who are moved by stories, it's really about the characters in the stories. It's about what? Arrogance and heroism and, you know, like I guess redemption, even the things that really resonate with us as human beings. And so what does this have to do with podcasting? What does Star Wars have to do with podcasting? Well, your podcast has the potential to be sort of the Star Wars of your niche, right? It's a tool where you go to forge a really deep connection with your audience. It's emotional. It's memorable. It's about what lingers with your audience long after the closing credits. I don't know about you, but do you ever just drive home from the theater and the whole time the movie's on your mind, you're talking about all the characters if you have someone else in the car with you, and then do you ever dream about them that night? Oh my goodness. My favorite dreams are the dreams after a great drama or suspense movie. I have the most amazing dreams that should be movies. They're usually not terrifying or anything, just like such amazing, crazy adventures. Well, that's because the genre, the method, the writing, the story has all made an emotional impression on me and on my subconscious. So do you realize when you're doing a podcast, a really world-class podcast is not just randomly talking to yourself and shooting the breeze with someone about nothing. It's about creating subconscious changes in your listeners and viewers. So in this here episode, did I just say in this here? Oh my God, where did that come from? It must have been my year in college in the South or something. Anyway, I love the way they talk. In this episode, I'm going to break down some of the storytelling elements that turn your listeners into loyal fans. They're waiting for your next sequel, just like we're always waiting for the next sequel of Star Wars, if that's your thing. So this is one of the ways you create a world-class podcast. This is one of the ways you become a thought leader in your field. So you ready to jump in at, dare I say it, light speed? Oh, no, that sucked. Okay. So storytelling in podcasting is really crucial because it has the power, as in anywhere else, to get and hold your audience attention. You got to make them feel included. It's not like a message at them. That's not what a movie is doing. A movie is pulling you in. And there's been, 100 years of effects and techniques that have trained the whole industry in Hollywood, how to pull you in and make you feel like you're part of the movie, right? So you have to make your audience feel included. And then you got to make it memorable. We already talked about that, right? You have to make it memorable. You really want to transport them into your podcast and make them part of it. Because isn't that what you're feeling in the theater? Like you're the pilot in the plane, you're the guy jumping off the cliff, you're the one falling in love and you feel that romantic feeling. So how do you make your audience a part of it? And storytelling, of course, one of the oldest gifts and arts there has ever been, is one of the best tools to do that. So on your podcast, you want to really create that emotional connection. If you don't remember anything else from today's episode, remember these two words, emotional connection. You want to create an emotional connection between your audience and your content. And if you were one of my students in a university class, that would be on your quiz. What do you need to create between your audience and your content? And the answer is blank, an emotional connection. And great storytelling turns your listeners, your viewers into fans. I mean, I prefer the art of video podcasting, but you can be audio, video. Now it's really great to be both. So storytelling is what gets your listeners and viewers excited. And it's also what makes it memorable, we said, which is why they're going to tell their friends and share it, post it, expand your reach. And a good story is powerful too. It goes beyond cultural barriers and personal barriers. It really connects us to a shared human experience, right? It evokes emotions. You can inspire your audience to take action. And as we already said, you can help them to feel like they are part of it. You can change their subconscious, like the movie actually, Star Wars epic film, whatever you might be watching, it literally is in your brain forever, which is how we can dream about it or how we create crazy dreams that are nothing like our lives, right? And influence our thinking. So there is a science behind storytelling. And our brains are wired to respond to stories. Specifically, our brains are wired to respond to stories. And scientists have shown that messages delivered as stories can be up to 22 times more memorable than just facts. 22 times. So you see why this is so critical to helping make you a thought leader in your field. When I'm working with my clients, when I'm helping them create a world-class podcast, we're going to have a lot of stories in there. And a lot of times that freaks people out, but we know the tricks and how to get you what you need, how to help you remember stories that will fit your theme. So it's not hard. You might just need a little support. So storytelling is what's going to create that connection between you as an authority in your field and your podcast and service. Recent studies also show that emotional content significantly increases the likelihood of, are you going to remember this? Recent studies show that emotional content significantly increases the likelihood of a listener's long-term memory formation. Long-term memory formation. This is why in religious traditions and other parts of life, like a parable kind of story was even used, because just creating a story to make a point was more memorable, right? Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Any number of the Humpty Dumpty, whatever. These stories, whether they were visual when you saw them or you only heard them at first, they've created a visual impression on you, and it's improved your retention and the recall of information. So emotional engagement is specifically linked to retention and recall of information. Studies using neuroimaging, because we talk about this a lot in my other show, which is Focused Meta Mindset, where we talk a lot about neuroscience and business. Studies using neuroimaging techniques like positron emission tomography, or PET, right, have identified that this emotional content really engages specific neural networks, the emotional content, right, leading to increased activity in brain regions that are associated with emotional processing and memory, such as the amygdala, of course, right, in various prefrontal areas. So the point is to use stories to help get your podcast noted and noticed. Noted and noticed, yes. When people work with me, they get that influential content that really creates a memory in the audience, right? People get the respect of the other professionals in your field. I mean, I help you become a world-class podcaster, and that way you're able to actually change the way people think and relate to the world. I've seen some, and you're taken seriously. I just had to say that. And you're taken seriously. I know you've heard or seen a podcast where you're like, okay, that's nice, but you're not really engaged. You're not really interested. You don't feel like you're being given specific content or how-tos to help you improve yourself, your life, or your business. So if you want to be taken seriously, you want to change the way people think, and you want to be presented in a world-class format. You can't be an authority in your field and do a half-assed job. I'm sorry, you just can't. Every once in a while, there's an exception to the rule, but in general, for most of us, you have to make the effort to be taken seriously. So let's jump back to stories for a second, because this is just fun. I love this episode anyway, just because it gets to be stories. So I thought I would share with you a few sort of the storytelling techniques, the storytelling intentions of films that are made in Hollywood, of scripts. I mean, it's amazing, really, right? Like how a movie is made from a story, which is made from a script, and then it resonates inside a human being. Like that's pretty crazy, right? So how do you create this experience for your audience? And like I said, Hollywood and the other film industries in the world have made a huge study out of this for over 100 years. So I'll give you an example, a two-part example of story here. So one of the feature films that I was lead in was called Silent Cry, and it was about humanitarian crisis in the Middle East, and it drew comparisons between despotic human atrocities throughout the 20th century to make a point. So part of the movie, we actually had to make in an actual concentration camp to create a dramatic experience for the viewer to understand how terminal the human rights abuses were in this story. And it's not a movie you would watch for fun. I was playing a media person that was going out and interviewing survivors of a humanitarian atrocity. So as an investigative reporter, it was my job to go around and talk to people and find out what their real life experiences had been. And this was a docudrama, so everybody was an actor, but the content was important. I worked extra hard to land that role because it was a story that made my heart feel something. It made it resonate with me. The director of the film had lost both of his sons in this political humanitarian atrocity and his wife. And this was a very personal story for him. A lot of other people that were involved with the movie also had loved ones or friends or literally whole families that had been lost. So when you start to feel that real humanity of being incarcerated or tortured or put to death for living a free lifestyle, by having the freedom to make your own choices, by having a certain political view, you start to realize this is really serious stuff. So 2 levels. We're making a story about this, but also as in filming, a little dark, I'm sorry, but in the concentration camp, right? Because it's real and it made people feel something and empathize in a very specific way. So this was a story using another story as a comparison to create an emotional connection with the audience. And not only this, I was having my own experience whilst making the movie. Did I say whilst? Man, who am I today? While I've been reading too much medieval text, making the movie myself. So my own experience. This is like a story about a story about a story. So you see how those levels can start adding up and really create an impression. So for me, it was interesting. I hated filming in the concentration camp. It was so dark, and I guess we had permission, but it just felt I was not comfortable at all. I didn't feel right about it, even though, it was for a purpose. But it's hard when your own emotions about the own stories you've heard all your life resonate in a sense where you actually are feeling sick and your job is to act, but you feel like just running away. It's really interesting. But we had some great times too. We were in Paris. We shot in Paris for a month, which was amazing, except that it was supposed to be winter time. Fortunately, Paris doesn't usually have snow, right? It's supposed to be winter time, and I have to wear like boots and a long wool coat and all of these heavy clothes. And for the first time in many years, it was 100 plus degrees Fahrenheit in Paris in July, which is, I don't even know what, 40 plus in Celsius. It was so hot. And Paris is humid in the summer often. And so I remember standing at the bridge right in front of the Eiffel Tower where we were shooting. We shot under the Eiffel Tower, and then we were shooting at the bridge. And the director wanted me to walk up the steps, getting off of one of those famous boats, right? Or go down the steps anyway, or both. The river boats there on the Seine. And so up and down the steps, the whole camera crew's there, everybody's filming, and I'm starting to turn red, and there's huge rivers, no drops, rivers of sweat going down my back, like running down my back. I almost got heat stroke. So these are one of the things you never hear about with acting. Acting can be physically torturous, for one thing, but memorable. Another memorable part of that shoot there in Paris was in Père Lachaise Cemetery, which is, as you know, a very, very famous cemetery where many greats are buried. Chopin, Rossini, Oscar Wilde, and of course the most visited grave, which is Jim Morrison's grave. And so many, many, many more famous people are there, buried there. And again, I think we were filming near a memorial that fit the profile of the story or was somehow related. But somehow our permit hadn't come through to film in time. And so a tiny contingent of us, like 4 or 5 of us, the director made an executive choice that we were going to go into the cemetery and guerrilla shoot, which means you're shooting without a permit, and just grab the, few sentences or whatever that we needed to shoot. Well, we got out there, we started filming. I was not comfortable with that either. Not every acting job is a job that you're like comfortable with how it's produced. So it gets very complicated. I was like, I'm not comfortable with this because it's against the rules and we don't have permission. And I don't want to feel like I'm desecrating anything, but it's also your job. So it's very awkward. So we go out there into the cemetery and we start shooting. And then here come the Parisian police, a whole bunch of them. And they come up and start shouting in French at us. And I was just like, oh my God. This whole thing, I'm going to literally end up in a French prison, a French jail. So I ran and hid in the cemetery. Of course, they couldn't find me. There's a lot of places to hide. I felt like I was 5 years old. I'm like, I'm not going to get arrested. They all want to get arrested. Go ahead. I'm not getting arrested. So in the end, the police, I don't know, they came to an understanding and everyone wondered where the lead actress was. And it was all a great drama. And my director was mad at me. And anyway, so you see what it feels like experiencing a story. and even a story about a story about a story, right? How did you feel in your stomach when the police were shouting in French? Like, how does that make you feel? How does it make you feel that I was seeing these incredible graves of famous people who changed the world, who were absolutely the thought leaders of their day and then some, and had used the tools they had at the time to create a global influence? So what we're doing here is helping you understand how I can give you the tools you need to create stories that give you a world-class podcast that makes it memorable and that allows you to become even greater authority in your field. And as we go forward, I'm going to be bringing even more practical tips to you, helping you craft your story, more how-tos, and just being vulnerable. I've never shared that story publicly before about hiding in the cemetery because it's embarrassing, honestly, and humiliating. And I'm sure lots of people have comments they'd like to make about it. But importance of vulnerability in first-person storytelling is really critical because people really feel you and they're affected, whether you agree, whether you disagree. You felt something, you had an opinion, you were affected, and you're encouraging your listeners to really take that to heart, to feel that, to form even an opinion that's not yours. At least they had to think about it, right? It's just fascinating how much stories affect us physically and mentally. Well, again, we're going to do more in a coming episode on how-tos in your storytelling for your podcasts. In the meantime, please send me your questions about storytelling. My email address is streaming. I will answer your email. It's Anne Scottlin. Whoops, let me see. That's annescottlin.com is the website. The email is contact@annescottlin.com. Shoot me comments, questions, ideas for the show. I would love to help you make your podcast a world-class success and help you be a true thought leader in your field. That's my job, and that's what I'm here. So please check out the website, check out the show, annescottlin.com, and share this link with a friend that might enjoy it, even just for the stories. I'll see you here again next week. We're stream on Wednesdays. That's 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, 5 GMT. And I can't wait to see you then. Cheers.